Hey everyone, before this show begins this week, I just want to give you all a quick heads up and issue a trigger warning. This week's episode, there are brief descriptions of actual events containing domestic violence and suicide, and some discussions of mental health as well. It's all quite brief and it's done in a tasteful way, but for those people who have been affected by that, it could be triggering. So if that's the kind of thing that does make you feel uneasy or upset you, it should all be wrapped up about 20-25 minutes into the episode, and then from there on it's just our regular movie chat. But just letting you know in case that's not the kind of thing you want to hear on a podcast, which is fair enough. Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighborhood film snob, and this week we have a very special guest who hasn't been on the show for well over a year and is definitely overdue for a return. We're not talking about apocalypse films this week. I know it's been a bit stop and start with that topic. We are pretty close to the end of that series. We have two more guests to talk about apocalypse films, including today's guest, if he wants to. If he doesn't, that's totally fine. It's not everyone's jam. But no, we're finally rounding out our 90s series, which we started earlier this year. And this guest, we've been trying to get on the show for a long, long time. His last appearance was in August of last year, back on episode 22. But just due to a bunch of different circumstances, it's taken a little while to get him on. But he's back. I've already seen a bit of a peek at his list, although he did warn me his list may have changed since he sent it to me only an hour ago, which is totally fine. Please welcome one of the biggest influences on my film fandom. It's my father, Graeme Chalmers. Welcome back to the show, Dad.
Thank you, son. How wonderful to be here.
I can already tell this show is going to be crazy.
You agree on a payment?
But I need to let them know, the listeners, that before we started recording like a minute ago, you're like, let's go, let's start the episode. So I hit record, and then you just started talking for 5 minutes, and you're like, are we going to start the show? I was like, yeah, I'm just waiting for you to finish your bit so we can start. It was very funny.
You know, it's always going to be a little bit strange, and so I tell you the story that I went down to Keilor Village for a wander, which really means I got out of the car and went to one shop.
For our international listeners, Keilor is not like no one's gonna know what Keilor is, but basically it is the town that that I grew up in. It's
grow up. It's also a place where you can go and get information on the tour of the gold rush, and
really
stopped at Keilor and then went on to Bendigo, and there's some great stories in there that I won't go on with because otherwise we'll get nothing done. I'm looking forward. As you're right, it's been a while, and sometimes you get inspiration and other things. And I just said to myself, when you said, "Do you want to do one?" and I'm going, "Yes, that sounds wonderful." And
Monty Python impressions have begun already. Good. Well, you came on the show. You were the third person. You were the first person ever to record an episode. You were the very first guest I had, but you debuted at episode 3 because we hadn't figured out what the format of the show was going to be yet. So I didn't. And that first episode is wild because you're very much a person who goes on tangents, which most of my best guests do. But I was like, we need to figure out the format before we introduce anything too wild. And then you came on to the 80s episode, which was received quite well as well. And then obviously Halloween horror movies, you didn't really have much interest, which is totally fine. We took a break over Christmas, and then this year's just been insane. This year's been insane trying to lock down schedules because you no longer work full time, but I kind of do, and I have a kid, and Tina's full time, and it's just trying to get everyone's schedules is crazy. But
yeah,
it took us a year, but you're back.
I'm back, and I don't work full time. I don't work.
Well, I didn't know what you want me to say, so I kind of left. I was like, I'll let him fill in the blanks.
I can say whatever I like. Prove it.
Of course, yeah. It's your story to tell, not mine.
Pretty clear. And I was listening to a conversation the other day about people who when they retire, um, and retiring is a story that I'll leave for another day because I'll just get lost in conversation. But it's a
Well, you
bit
can
like,
talk about it if you want. Like, there's no rules. If you want to talk about why you retired, you can. But it's up
well,
to you.
I might do that. One of the things, the selection of movies that I chose, um, have got a thread running through them, and I don't know whether you've worked out what the thread is. Um,
I'm looking over it, and I'll be honest. I mean, look, as I say, they all have a criminal element to them, but I don't know if one of them does. Like, I'm not quite sure what the theme is in all of them yet. But I do like. I really like your list, and I'd seen all of them except for one of them until very, very recently, and I adored it. So I'm like, oh, I can talk about that one now as well. I've seen it, so that's good.
the As you know, I've been speaking to a friend of mine on with some interesting conversations, and because I don't spend my life going and fulfilling other people's needs in the way of work, and fulfilling my own needs in smiling and laughing and stuff like that. The thing that's really important is we spend so much time trying to satisfy other people without actually satisfying ourselves. And it is
Why this show
extremely.
exists. That's exactly why this show exists.
Sorry?
I said that's exactly why this show exists. There was a vacancy in my life at a certain point where I wasn't getting the conversational needs I wanted about movies. I used to work with people who watched a lot of movies, and then every job since then has been very much the opposite, where everyone like I worked in jobs where no one even watched movies or television at all. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, how can
Yeah,
you? I'm not saying you have to be as crazy as me. Like, very few are, but you're telling me you never look at the TV screen ever? Like, so during the lockdown, when I found that vacancy, I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to start a show and talk to people about movies, and hopefully we'll get 10 episodes out of it, and that'd be really fun. And here we are, 60 episodes later, 61 episodes later, and it's still going. And but yeah, the whole idea of this is to be a little bit selfish.
yeah.
And not selfish, like I'm not saying I haven't been selfish in other areas, but this is just a chance for me to kind of be like, you know what, this is going to fulfill me in those needs that I have.
I, I think the thing that's really, um, everyone's different,
Mm.
um, and we all have different ways of communicating. Look, um, I enjoyed my work, but I didn't enjoy the people I work with. In many instances, who were bullies. And I was reflecting on this the other day. Where we live around the corner was a guy called Nobby Clark. He played for Essendon in the back line, and he committed suicide. It's not like it wasn't unknown, but one of the nicest people in this world. And so often people jump to a solution which isn't really a solution. What it is it takes you out of the equation, as in, like Nobby. He's got kids and a wife, and he's a beautiful person, but he couldn't cope. And at the end of the day, these people who've got so much to offer, and I think that's something, um, when I've been talking to people of recent days, is that people say, well, there's no other solution, but it's really is that you've got to open your mind up and going, am I looking for a solution or am I looking for a way out? And and the solution has to actually include the person involved that can actually ultimately find some happiness with the people around him. And that may mean getting rid of a lot of people you don't need. And
There's a really wonderful quote I've heard about it, about suicide. And I'm sorry, everyone, that we got so dark so quickly. We will go and have fun soon, I promise. But because it came up, there's a really wonderful quote I heard. Someone said, "It doesn't make things better. It just takes away the opportunity to make things better." Um, And look, I mean, look, to each their own. Like, if that's it's, you have one life, and if that's what you choose to do it, I'm not, it's not my place to criticize someone. I've never been in such a dark place that I felt the need to do that. But um, you know, mental health is definitely an ongoing pandemic. Like, it's especially post the physical pandemic we had. Like, mental health is on the rise, and we need to be looking after ourselves and each other, and having those conversations. And we're actually going to be talking about that on a show very, very soon. We're going to do a bit of a mental health special, but that's for another time.
Yeah, that's a look. It's fair to say that I see a specialist, and I don't feel guilty or bad about that. You know what?
Should definitely not. There's nothing wrong with asking for help.
Yeah, and I've just got the most amazing specialist. Comes from the Philippines, and we spend a lot of time laughing. And I don't know how that happens, but the other last week or the week before, we were just having a chat, and I said, I forgot to get you a coffee. I said, because I couldn't find my car keys, and I do have a trouble finding things. Like, I can spend 2 days just going around the house and going, okay, I know they're here because the car's here. So and, and life, like, you've just got to accept the fact. Like, I'm 72 next week, and that's my
All
waist
right.
measurement. And in fact, it's not. I am skinny.
You've lost a bunch of weight. You actually inspired me. I was just telling you before. This morning I was like, you know what? Today is the day I start making better choices. I said almost a year ago, my 34 list was one thing I was gonna improve my relationship with food and exercise, and I haven't done anything about it yet.
Yep.
I'm not too far off 35. I'll be middle aged in a couple of months. So today was the day. I'm like, you know what? Today's the day I start making better choices. If my dad can do it after 72 years, then I can sure give it a crack. So
Yeah. No. And the thing is, like, I'm in a pretty good space. I think my weight currently is 67.5, which is
you're
over
significantly
75.
lighter than I am. Yeah.
I think most of that was my wallet. The, well, there wasn't that much weight in it. You don't get much out of $10.50. But anyway, um, the the thing that we often talk about are things like, when I was training and up in Queensland and New South Wales and in Melbourne, I used to always say to the staff, laugh, smile, and say hello to someone you don't know. And even sometimes I used to get surprised where I say that to someone, and the person would turn around and say thank you, and it's the most stunning person I've ever seen.
Mm.
And ordinarily, they just probably go past. Um, and it's not the really important thing about communication is, don't have it planned how the communication will go or what it will provide. But if you say hello to someone you don't know, that may be the only conversation they ever have for the day.
Mm.
And it doesn't hurt. And I've been amazed. And, I just said to the staff, for those who don't know what I did before, I used to steal cars. Oh, no, I didn't. The
I
sorry,
literally watched. It's so funny you mentioned stealing cars. I just watched Baby Driver the other night. Have you watched that yet, Baby Driver?
no.
Oh, okay. Like 5 years ago, I think it was 5 years ago. I said to Sarah, who's also been on the show. It's been a while since she's been on the show. I said, Dad needs to watch two movies this year. He needs to watch The Big Sick, and he needs to watch Baby Driver. Between the two of you, get it done. And
Yep.
because you'll love those movies.
Send the notation and I'll have a look. I
Baby
can.
Driver is a wonderful film. It's a bank heist movie. It's about like a guy who he's a driver for like a criminal underworld, and he
I have.
becomes sorry.
Maybe I have.
I don't know if you have or not. But I will send you the list right now because you need to watch like Baby Driver. You'll love both of them. Like, they're right up your alley. Baby
Yeah.
Driver is definitely a you film, and The Big Sick is kind of like it feels weird to compare it to Bend It Like Beckham, but it's kind of the closest thing I can think of. It's kind of an immigrant story. It's about a Pakistani stand-up comedian who falls in love with a girl, but due to like his background and his upbringing, his parents don't have anything to do with her because she's white, and then she becomes sick and she kind of has to rely on him while she's in a coma. It's a sad movie, but it's also very very funny.
Yeah.
And that's like because I know how much you love Bend It Like Beckham. So like it's just like the next step to me. It's like it's kind of like a spiritual sequel or kind of a sister movie to Bend It Like Beckham. So those are 5 years ago. I told you to watch those movies. You got to check them out. You'll love them.
Hey, listen, how long did it take you to see Love and Other Drugs?
That's true. But I did watch it. So I watched it and you slept too. You haven't watched it. I loved Love and Other Drugs. Like that was a wonderful recommendation. I watched that the day before I had my wisdom teeth out. I think you messaged me, you're like, hey, how you doing? I was like, I'm just watching your favorite movie. And you're like, the response was so excited. You're like, how is it? Do you love it? And I was like, I'm half an hour in. It's great. Although I was, and maybe like it just goes to show I don't know you as well as I think I do. Because the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, this doesn't feel like a dad movie at all. It's so like explicit and like violent. Not violent, but like it's very the language gets quite aggressive and blue and like it's
You're
very
talking
sexually driven.
the way that she hardly wears any clothes. I've probably seen a few women like that. Yeah, a long time ago in my past. Now let's get on. So, and I think in the selection, whilst there's one or two which are a little bit out of left field, the one thing that's a constant in most of these movies is mental health issues. And how do I say that? I just did mental health issues.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to think.
So people got autism.
Do they?
Yep. So
Don't
things
talk
like.
about them. Don't talk about the movies yet. We'll get to the list in a second.
But the thing is that, and these are a particular, series of movies like Edward Scissorhands.
Okay, so we're talking about them. Okay, yep, sure.
That's where I'm going with that.
Okay. I don't think Edward Scissorhands has autism. Edward Scissorhands is a monster. He was created.
Oh, he's only a monster in people's eyes.
But he's not a bad monster. He's a good monster. But he was created. But like, I guess the parallel he does have what you would like a social anxiety. That's fair. I'll go with that.
Yeah. So it's more about he's in his own little world.
Yeah.
And people who have mental health issues usually are in their own little world, and they have to be treated. So I'm looking at different aspects now of what the movie is relaying. In the sense, I love that movie.
Oh, you need to watch Get Out as well. I'm putting it on your list. Get Out as a horror film, but like in terms of the mental health aspect of it, oh my goodness, it's wonderful.
Yeah. It comes from that same sort of batch, like Beetlejuice.
Yes.
And I love that as well. I mean,
I watched that for the first time after you were on the show. I don't know if it was late last year or early this year, but I finally watched Beetlejuice after 33, 34 years, and I really enjoyed it.
Yep. It was amazing.
But we know if listeners remember your last appearance, we know you're a big Winona Ryder fan. So the fact that both Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands get a mention should be no surprises there.
Yeah. I think I like any girl that comes from England that's named Emily, and
I'm like Emily Blunt.
Oh,
I'm trying to think. She's great. I'm trying to think of any Emily Mortimer. She's British as well. She's wonderful as well. You might be onto something. Before we jump into your list, let's have a chat about the 90s. So I obviously remember the 90s because they were my formative years. That's where I grew up. We talked about Keilor before. I spent most of the 90s in Keilor, and that's where I really became introduced to films. But what are your memories of the 90s? And in terms of 90s film, what does it mean to you?
Well, it's funny. I mean, if I go back, I'm thinking 90s. Was I still married then?
You were.
I was till the end of the 90s, so I got through the 90s.
Into the early couple, I think the early 2000s as well.
Hey,
I said early 2000s. I think the separate. Well, you know what? That's another conversation. We don't need to go into that. We're getting very close to some very personal stuff. That's okay.
no, we won't go there.
You opened up a conversation, and I like as I can't help myself. I just start talking about anything. Yeah. So you were still married in the 90s. Let's leave it at that.
Well, no, that helps me with working out where I was,
Mm,
um, and the the 90s was really sort of a change, partly change in direction. Like I was working in Keeler at the time. I was at the Keeler Hotel, um, and this is where I'd gone from working for a large corporation, an organisation where I'd bullied, um, and I was speaking to my very good friend, and she said to me one day, she said, "Gee, you've certainly had some fun, haven't you?" I go, "Yeah." The
mm,
and um, I think one of the most important things that we really need to be secure about is that no job is worth your health.
absolutely,
And
100%.
the trouble is that we often sacrifice our health to stay in a job when the fact is get out of the job and your life will be a whole lot better. But I learned that far too late.
That's why I left insurance. When I worked in insurance, it was nothing to do with the company or the people. Like ever, it was a very supportive and lovely environment, but that job was soul crushing. Um,
Yeah,
and I think I got about 7 months in, and I was like, I need to get out. I need to get
yeah.
out now before because yeah, I was actually talking about this last night with Josh. Josh has also been on the show. He and I went and saw the Ninja Turtles last night. We'll talk about that at some point. But we were talking about just like the lowest parts. I don't know why we have such a depressing conversation. We were talking, I guess, because we were both in such positive places now. We were talking about some of those low times. I was like, man, that insurance, like that job almost destroyed me. It was so rough. Um, and I had to so I remember having that chat with Tina. And I was like, look, like it's a really good paying job. I know it's helping us with a lot of things. We've just bought a house, but I don't think I can do this anymore. Like if you like if you think it's tough to be around me now, like in 2 months, it might be a lot tougher. And thankfully, she was very supportive, and I went into a retail job, which wasn't much better to be honest, but at least it got me closer to home.
I'm on the lowest paying job in the world, the pension,
Yeah.
um, and um, and I've never been happier.
Oh, like I'll be honest. What like my idea of retirement is just watching movies. Like just I just would get to watch more movies than I do now, and I watch quite a few. I'm ahead. I've watched more movies than there's been days in the year. I think at this point, but I could easily double those numbers if I was retired.
Where, well, next month it'll be 12 months since I worked,
Wow.
and I'm not, I haven't died from starvation. So the but like the opportunities have opened up to me, um, and I was talking to a chap last week, and he said to me, "Are you interested in doing some cooking in the shop? Not cooking as in a job, but demonstration."
Mm. I remember you
You
telling me
know,
this. Yeah.
and I'm going, yeah, because I can be myself in that. If I'm doing I have to be serious. So if I'm going to cook something um, as something that I would do professionally, not as a job, but as a demonstration, I'd have to do it properly.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm going in to do something as a demonstration, but it's very different. And when we're talking about doing a demonstration uh, for helping people to cook with with the food in their fridge. So I've got a site on my computer. It's called "What's in the Fridge," and I'll start that process up very soon. And
Nice.
uh, and that just came out of the blue. And so I'll just go down the shop one day and I'll take my new cooking implement, which I've had for about 5 6 years. That doesn't use gas because our government has made some very important decisions to, I don't know, do something.
I mean, look, we weren't open a political debate, but you and I don't always see eye to eye on politics. But I'm not happy about the gas situation at all either. Geez, winter has been expensive. Um,
Uh,
let's jump back to the 90s.
let's
So
go
you were
back to
working in a job you hated. That's how we got to where we were going. You're in a job that you hated.
Edward Scissorhands.
But we're not talking about movies yet. We're just talking about the 90s in general.
Oh, the
So
90s, yes. So,
I remember them being big video store years for us. That was what we did a lot in the 90s.
what do we do?
Went to the video store a lot.
Oh, yes. Yes, we'd see a lot of videos. You'd go down on your bike um, and do that. We
What kind of stuff were you watching in the 90s when we weren't around? Because I remember it wasn't you weren't just renting videos for us kids. I remember like often you get a couple of stuff. I think the most distinctive one I remember when we lived in the house in Keilor on Church Street. That house is still there, by the way. It's still the smallest house on the biggest street. But I remember distinctly we had a bunch of videos, and then on top of the television, because we couldn't reach, there was a copy of Dracula. I want to say the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula with Anthony Hopkins and
yeah.
Gary Oldman. So obviously that's a horror flick, and I know you've got a horror movie on your list, which we'll get to. But were you watching a lot of horror in the 90s, or was it just those particular films, or what were
I always
you
wanted the
watching in the
sparkle
90s the
stuff.
most? Do you think?
And that was pretty good because I could get dressed up around the house and chase you around and go, "Ooh." Not really. I guess. Look, I think now what I watch is a lot of serious stuff, particularly English series, because they're very good, and I want something to entertain me and also keep me lured in. I think that the thing is over that period of time, I went through multiple changes. I say that it's not like I was having multiple issues in my life. Well, I probably was, and I didn't know it. But the thing is that because my job changed a bit, because I'd either gone from cooking, which was day and night, and if I ever hear someone whinge to me about, the amount of hours they do, or they're having to do this or do that, and I'm thinking, one thing about the job before whatever was that, you'd start at 10 in the morning and you'd finish 10 at night and then drive home, get enough sleep to do it again. But that was the job and that was the passion. And the job was central, but there wasn't much time for much else. So when I got out of the cooking side, then I was doing management, and management took under a number of roles, so it gave me a bit more flexibility. But probably during that period of time, I learned how to push a piece of apparatus down a pole and have one child fall off. Yeah, I wasn't
I
probably
just realized what you're referencing. That's a very deep cut family joke that no one listening will understand. Are you talking about the flying fox?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So our family has a history. My younger brother Nick, who's never been on the show, not for lack of invitations, just not really his thing. Historically, he was the child who would always get injured the most out of the three of us, and the story which Dad is referencing is that once Dad pushed him on a flying fox so far that Nick flew off the end of it and went about 5 meters across the park and landed on his stomach, which was terrifying at the time, but now very amusing.
I think we laughed. No, we didn't.
The kid, he could not help but get injured, and he's not a clumsy person at all, but he just had bad luck.
Yeah, when he walked on the rocks and hit his teeth.
He slipped on a climbing frame, hit his teeth. He was also knocked over on the cricket pitch at school and had his teeth knocked in. He put his hand on the barbecue.
Flat down.
Yeah, flat down. I wonder if this is hot. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Poor
He
kid.
put it in a puddle of water with rocks in it, stuck to
I
his arm.
always the one that no one talks about, but I always remember. That's so weird and so upsetting. Is you were doing some landscaping in the backyard at Church Street. You're digging a big hole, and Nick, I guess he wasn't looking. He fell into it, and he came out covered in, I would say, easily 1,000 ants, and like, they were crawling in his ears and his eyes, and he was like, it was so upsetting. But now it's just like, oh, it's so ridiculous. Like he had to have a bath to get them all off, and we still couldn't. Like he was still finding ants. Like 3 days later. Um,
That reminds me of the backyard. I love the backyard. The backyard. We're doing pretty well with the series. The backyard went 2 instances. Nick went up to the shed,
got
and
the
got
power saw.
the hand saw, the power
Mm.
saw, and brought it back down to the house and plugged it in the kitchen.
Mm.
And Nick was about 3 or 4.
Yeah, that would be the equivalent of Zoe doing that today. Although actually, Tina was telling me that Zoe asked if she could. We've got a comb in the bathroom to comb her hair at the end, after she had her bath, and it's one of those ones like a metal point at the end, and she
Yeah,
wanted to know if she could put it in the power socket, and I was like, oh no. It's we're entering the terrifying part of her being a child, because now she wants to explore. She's confident.
yeah,
She's adventurous. She wants to try things.
yeah.
Um, and I was like, the next thing is going to be like the knife in the toaster. I can just tell. Like, oh, like it went in the very scary part. Like she's got a hair dryer recently, and the day that we unpacked it, I felt sick because like she uses after a bath. All she has to do is take it in the bath, and like I just it scared me so much. But she's pretty good with it. Like she knows the rules. It's tucked away. It's in the drawer until she's done and the water's out of the bath. So
I think I actually put a knife into an electric radiator when I was young. And that wasn't a bright spark, I can tell you.
there we go. Well done. I did. I do remember you were setting up a phone when we moved from Keilor. We moved to Sydenham, and you were setting up a phone line, and you got a shock. And I remember Mum was like, "You okay?" And you're like, "Yeah, I felt it in my tongue." And we were like, "Oh no, oh no, this is terrible."
It, it is. There was a tree down the back of Folsey's house, Gary Foles, who played for us, and he backed onto our house, and I was just trimming back one of the trees, which was probably about 15 metres tall, and as I was cutting into it with the chainsaw on a ladder that was rocky at best on the branch, and as it started to fall off the rest of the tree, a wombat jumped out in front of me, and then I started to do a pirouette on the ladder onto the ground, which was also elevated off the ground. I survived, and it really is remarkable that I've actually.
You've had some brutal injuries as well. I remember you telling me like you broke your back falling out of a tree. I remember you
Yep.
saying you cut your leg open with a hacksaw.
Yep.
And I think it's because of all the terrifying things that have happened to you and my brother, and my sister, to an example, is why I've managed to not hurt myself so often. I'm just terrified of everything, so I've managed to dodge too much pain.
I put it down to this: many people don't have the experiences that we've had.
That's a diplomatic way to phrase it. Sure.
When I was talking to my friend, she when she said to me, "You've had some experiences," so I unleashed a lot of the experience that I'd had. She goes, "That's enough."
I think, like, to the best of my knowledge, the only thing I can think of is I fractured my arm when I was 17.
Yep.
And when I was 12, yeah, I'll tell the story. She won't like that I told the story, but it's fine. Mum accidentally dropped a pot of boiling hot rice on my back, and my skin. You're having a laugh, and my skin blistered. And yeah, I had like I lost a couple of layers of skin for the summer. Yeah, but those are the only major injuries I can think of. I've been pretty lucky. I think maybe I broke my toe playing soccer once. Like I've never had anything too serious. Never even had a bee sting. Didn't have my first blood nose till I was almost 30. And I won't tell that story because
I don't recall ever having a blood nose.
there you go, strong veins.
I've had a lot of other strange things, like the when you're talking about the saw, it was actually a power saw, a power planer that I had a piece of wood stuck between my legs while I was trying to plane it
Such a
down.
bad idea.
It
Such a
totally,
bad idea. You were a kid though, weren't you?
hey,
You a kid? You were young? Like you weren't.
young kid of about 22.
Yeah, it's a kid.
I
22 is not smart. I've learned, like, based on my own personal experience, 22 is not smart.
no, look, the sort of experiences I've had. I mean, because you have to justify things. Why do you get beaten up by thugs? Well, everyone has to at some stage in their life because it's going to happen. And I got beaten up over in Ringwood when I was looking after a pool hall, and that was wonderful. Then I got beaten up again by a guy that we were trying to look after who got himself into a bit of trouble, and his girlfriend was in a juvenile centre, and he got her out of the juvenile centre and then got us involved in it. And so then I just said, take her back. There's nothing we could do. And anyway, so he came around and visited me one day, and he just was exercising his fists on my body quite dramatically. And yeah, I think I was going out for dinner that night, and I had to change my shirt because it was gone from blue to red. So I did have. Oh, the thing, like life's a bit like Edward Scissorhands. You don't necessarily plan anything, but you have to plan out of it rather than getting planned into it. And you can't ever anything that happens in your life is an experience, whether it's good or bad. It's an experience, and you'd be very, very surprised at times when that experience comes to hand when helping people, because you've got to use it for something, because you don't want to get another rearranged face or whatever. You could be, and that's the thing is, so often you could be the meat in the sandwich of something that's going on, got nothing to do with you. I remember a mate of mine. When I say mate, um, he was in a bike club. He was a secretary of a bike club, and I knew a lot of bikies in those days, um, and that's just bordering the 90s, so the 80s, 90s. I knew a lot of bikies in those days, and he went into his car, or it might have been his partner's car, and started laying into her. And this is where, you know, growing up makes a big difference. So rather than go in there and try to separate him from her, I went and got someone who was about another foot taller and about another 30 kilos heavier, just to sort that one out. Um, it's really, life can be very sad and difficult, but you know, at 72, and I think I might have said to you the other day, my dad died at 64, my grandfather died at 60, and my other grandfather died about the same sort of age, and now I'm up to 72, and I'm thinking,
Yeah, I'll
you know,
be honest. You talked about, I think you mentioned 63, and you talked about a lot. We were kids. I'll be honest, when you turned 60, a lot of us were nervous. Like, those next couple of years were pretty nerve wracking for us because there was a history of a 60, kind of 60 to 64 mortality rate. So once we hit
yeah,
64, and we're like, all right, we're free and clear now. We should be okay, hopefully, for a
I'm
little
with it.
while longer.
Yeah, well, like the the last year hasn't been great. Um, but at the end of the day, and it's with a lot of other confusions. And one day I want to spend some time um, talking about mental health issues, and because mental health issues deal with a lot of other things, and as you know, that one of the problems is that it can cause you to make decisions that maybe aren't the best decisions, and my specialist, she says to me, I need to get you to go out there and talk to people. And I'm going, yeah, I'll do jokes. I'll do. I said to someone the other day I was going to be a stand-up comedian, but no one could see me. Uh, the, it's not an issue that I'll talk about um, immediately, but people who work are very much afraid of telling their workmates or their boss that they have a medical health issue, because you know what happens when people say, "Oh, they've got a medical health issue," and everyone goes, "Oh yeah, that'll get them off it." But sadly, that can hit people in very different ways, and struggle for years trying to work out what's going on. And then there's a lot of other things on top of that. So people do have, difficulties with their life that they don't necessarily want to deal with, but then their life becomes complicated because they don't know why they're suffering so much. And if you say something to your boss, they'll probably sack you. So
It's gotten a lot
really,
better. There's definitely a lot better. Like I don't really talk about my job on the podcast. I have to keep work and fun separated. Not that work's not fun, but work and fun separated. But I do work in management, and one thing that we're constantly kind of working on and making sure we're supporting and doing correctly is being supportive of employees with mental health, because especially post COVID, like it's not like it didn't exist before COVID, but especially post COVID, it's just a whole different thing now. So
yeah,
it's getting a lot better. And one thing I love about the industry I'm in and where I do work is that's it is taken seriously and treated with care and respect, which is excellent. Because there are definitely other places I've worked. I won't name names because like it was hopefully they're on the right track now. But different places I've worked when I was a lot younger where that was not taken into consideration at all.
no. And
But it's
look,
interesting. Also, the mindset has changed in the way of work. Like I have a friend who recently quit their job because due to mental health issues. But then, and whilst I'm certainly not dismissive of that at all, like I know what that person's gone through, and they definitely have had some mental health issues in the past. But one of the other reasons they quit their job was they're just like, I can't work 5 days. Like 5 days is, a 40-hour week is too demanding, and this person's a lot younger, and so I'm certainly not poking fun. Obviously the mental health issues are real, but a 40-hour work week, I agree, is too much, sometimes, but that's the way it's always been. If you got a 40-hour work week, but you're actually doing a lot better than a lot of other people who are doing, kind of 60, 70-hour work weeks. Not that that's right, but yeah, 40-hour work week's pretty common.
yes, and
Person's a lot younger as well. So I think prior to that, they hadn't worked a full-time job before. So that could, I'm not saying, like, I feel like I'm digging a hole here. I'm not dismissing the mental health issues at all. Like, I know what that person's gone through. They've gone through a very, very tough time. I think the 40-hour work week and the mental health issues are separate issues.
I think you're correct.
Yeah.
I'm just going to just take a sidestep for a minute.
Yeah.
If I told you a movie took $463 million, what do you think the movie might have been?
It made that, or it cost that much?
That's what it made.
Well, if it was 20 years ago, it would be pretty easy to pick it. But these days, a lot of movies make $700, $800 million. We've got about 15 that have made over $1 billion. So it doesn't. Unfortunately, I can't narrow it down because in the last 10 years, so many movies have made over $1 billion. 473 is.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, and certainly look. I mean, I would like $1 million. I wouldn't even need $473 million. $1 million would be lovely, but in the grand scheme of movie box office, 473 is on the lower end now. It's crazy. Like I
Oh, yeah.
remember, I remember when $100 million was a big deal for a movie, and now like they're making $1 billion. I think Avengers Endgame made $2.3 billion in the cinema. Like that's 2.3 billion.
Yeah.
That's insane. And look, I went and saw that movie 3 times, I think, in the cinema, so I know how it made the money. People went multiple times, but that's
Yeah.
insane. 2.3 billion. Um, I think it's the highest grossing of all time, or maybe Titanic is back there because Titanic's been in the movies non-stop for the last 30 years. So, what was the movie?
Pretty Woman.
Oh, There you go. That's huge. That's for its time. If it may, I don't know if I don't know if that's like at time of release or if it's like since since the 90s. Because I know that films had come back to the movie theater a lot as well. But still, like for a 90s
That's a,
rom-com, that's a decent chunk of change.
you think so?
That's a lot of money for Pretty Woman made in the 90s. It probably cost them $30 million to make.
Yeah,
Um, uh,
14.
14 million does. There you go. Because it's not like there's not a lot in it that requires money. Yeah,
No,
$14 million worldwide, gross $463 million. That is insane. I wonder if that is. Oh,
what
I think that's with inflation though.
what 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 it starts to say, like if you were graphing something. So as a manager, you graph things because that gives you indications, and you can tell a story to your boss any way you like, and they have to believe it because it's all in front of them. It's just the way you tell the story. But what it says that movie reached the nerve of people
Mm.
is that saw such an increase in a sale of a product, because that's you're quite right. Um, it was successful because it was about someone. A lot of the movies. What's that one with Jennifer Lopez where she's a waitress or whatever? I can't think of it. That's usually the case. Um, the but she's going to be, well, she's a hooker, and she ends up getting all the nice clothes and all sorts of stuff and whatever, and whatever. And I was just totally amazed because that movie's a great movie as well. Um, and some of the storylines, some of the storylines are very simple, and you sit there and thinking, I like that. I think I probably would have watched it 6 or 7 times,
Mm.
and I think because the theme of it was about someone making good, someone's actually seeing something good in someone. But the other thing, this is another one with a sort of an autism type flair in it, the where you know one person sees himself in one position, another person sees themselves in another position, and then you've got that beautiful position where the people who think they've got everything tell everyone they can't afford it, and well, that went wrong, didn't it? Uh,
When you say, are you talking about Richard Gere's character?
yes,
Because he's quite neurotic. Yeah,
yeah,
again, I don't know if it's quite an autism thing. I think it's probably more. There's definitely a social anxiety in that character as well, and he likes to be alone. He prefers he prefers solitude to company of others. I think it's more of a social anxiety, but I definitely see what you mean. Um, this feels like a good place to start your list. So, because you've talked about a couple of movies on your list now, so we should probably start talking about them. What is number 5 on your list? Is Pretty Woman number 5 on your list?
Pretty Woman.
Cool.
What else to talk about?
Well, let's
Well,
start with Pretty Woman. Let's start with that one. So, you've already kind of gone over the premise. She plays a prostitute, a hooker, who is walking the strip in LA and gets picked up by Richard Gere. So this is the film that a year ago I hadn't seen, but it got mentioned so many times in this podcast. I was like, if everyone else likes it, I've got to give it a go, and I loved it. I was surprised how much I loved it because I dodged that movie for 20 years because like it's a chick flick. It's a and chick flick is not really a term anymore. It's really a term in the 90s, 2000s. It's kind of gone away. But I just never had any appeal to me. And then I watched it this year, and I fell in love with it. I thought it was brilliant. It's yeah. So you're right. Richard Gere plays like this multi-millionaire business tycoon type character. He buys and sells property and land and things like that, and then falls in love with a prostitute. Um,
the I, I think there's two. Some of the movies that I picked have strong characters, and
Very much
you know,
so.
Sandra Bullock and Julia Roberts are amazing actors, amazing, because it doesn't matter what role they do, they pick it up. I mean, I was thinking, you can think, you can go from the extreme to miscongeniality, and you sit there. That is as low key type thing, and yet it's how they play that role. And then you can look at um, uh, Goodwill Hunting with Ben Affleck. I reckon he's brilliant.
Mm.
He's one of those characters that it doesn't matter what character he plays, he's just good.
Yeah, Affleck and Damon, both in that film, and great casting. Let's stick with Pretty Woman, and we'll get to your next movie in a moment. But so you've talked about, obviously you like I guess the neurosis of the character of Richard Gere, and obviously Julia Roberts is wonderful.
Yeah,
I've never been a Julia Roberts fan. I was never anti Julia Roberts. I just never really got it. I'd seen Aaron Brockovich
yeah,
years and years ago, and I liked that, but I never really got it. And then I watched Pretty Woman. I was like, oh, I get it.
yeah.
I understand. I'm now drinking the Kool-Aid. I get what everyone else is talking about. Like, she's so charismatic and charming and fun. Okay, I get it. It took me a long time. I apologize. Well, I'm on the same page. Um, what else do you like about the flick? It's wonderful, and it does a thing you don't see in comedies and rom-coms anymore, which gets a little bit dark. You've got Jason Alexander, who obviously plays George Costanza in Seinfeld, and he
Yeah,
plays this absolute creep of a friend, and like he's making moves on her, and it gets very like unpleasant, for a rom com. It gets very dark.
yeah. And I think probably why it works a bit
Mm,
is it's there's other parts in there that you actually have to sit through and going, why would you do that?
mm,
It works, and you sit there. It's a chick flick, but um, it's got interest in it for the male because I think it's that's the way women are treated.
mm.
Um, and so when you look at it, you sit there and you're thinking, you know, she's really badly treated. She's really she because that's her job. Then she's not seen as a real woman.
Well, what's interesting is, and you've highlighted a really interesting social issue here, because obviously, um, there's we're getting so political. I've got to walk this line carefully. Got to walk this line carefully. But there's definitely, and there's been an ongoing issue with the way women have been treated by men and the patriarchy and things like that. And
Yeah,
that's definitely present in this film. But one thing it highlights that often gets overlooked is how women treat other women. That's a big part of Pretty Woman as well. Like it was covered in the Barbie movie recently, and it was covered in Mean Girls, 15 years ago. And
oh
something that like Tina and I talked about as well, where it's like, it's none of it should be considered normal, but we know like that there's obviously the patriarchy and the way women are treated, but then to see the way women treat each other is almost worse in ways at times. And again, like this is sounds like a massive generalization. I'm not saying all women, certainly not, but just like if in the perfect example in this movie is when she goes to the store, and the shopkeepers
yeah,
won't even talk to her. They won't treat. It's just like no, you're not the right kind of woman for this, for this shop. So you
yeah,
should go.
you know,
Um, I feel like we navigated that okay. I'm sure I'll hear about it if we didn't, but I promise you, my intentions were to be. I am an ally, and that's what I was trying to prove in that bit there. Um,
yeah. I look, it it's been objective about the role that's being played, and the thing is that we men are criticised quite openly about the way they treat and talk about women.
and rightfully so. Like there's a lot of scuzzballs out there, so definitely rightfully so.
Yeah, and I think in some ways, some of the way that the movies have been written or portrayed um, certainly puts a very straightforward light on
Mm,
light on things. A Pretty Woman to me was just it was like when I say a classic, it's not true, but it had so many elements of like what did this man really see in that woman,
mm,
that and it was just his power.
Mm.
you know. And then what you got from her is the classic woman. Well, that's not probably true either. A woman who is in a particular area of life which is frowned upon or treated, or treated with disrespect, and she navigated her way through that by being stronger.
Well, she's quite a sex positive character, which I think is very unique for the '90s. Like, or I guess it was starting to change in the '90s, and definitely in the in the advent of more R-rated comedies, where they kind of were more open and free talking about sex and things like that. Not that didn't happen in movies previously. Like obviously the '70s was very sex positive as well, but the '80s kind of did a huge reversal on that. But this is kind of the resurgence of that. But
Yeah,
also, at its core, and this is going to sound really strange maybe to some people, Pretty Woman is a fairy tale. Like it's a fairy tale movie. It's about a
yeah,
princess who
yeah,
is living under hard times, treated poorly by those around her, and then a prince comes and whisks her away. Like it's Cinderella, it's Rapunzel, it's all of those movies. It's set in the '90s, and instead of being a princess locked in a tower, she is a hooker. And instead of a prince riding a horse, it's a billionaire business tycoon with a heart of gold. Like but it's the same format. Which is why I think it works so well, because those stories have worked well for hundreds of years, and now it's just a more modern kind of grittier take on it. Um, but yeah, what's really funny to me, or maybe not funny, but amusing, is that this movie was also on Mum's list. So both you and Mum put Pretty Woman on your '90s list, which I thought was very interesting. Um,
yes.
what's next? What is your next movie from the '90s, Dad?
All right. Well, the would be uh, Goodwill Hunting.
Such a good movie. Such a good movie.
The there's so much of um, just bear with me, as you know, but I have these blank moments.
It's okay. It's all good.
Hey,
I said, that's all good. You take your time. I've got it on my shelf. I'm actually
yeah,
due to watch it. I haven't seen Goodwill Hunting in a number of years. Oh, no, I don't have it on my shelf. Oh, I need to rectify that.
what's his name?
Robin Williams, Matt Damon.
That's terrible. Um, uh, just it's what there are people, or who are born to do certain things, and
Mm,
it didn't really matter what role he took. Once again, he lived it out. That his character was amazing in itself, and it was interesting. I read some critiques about it from some of the well-to-do critics who canned it.
that's why we don't like critics on this show. As we always say, vote with your wallet. Don't listen to anyone else, not even me. Because like
And
listen to my show, please, but don't listen to my opinions, and don't use my opinions to inform your decision making. Make your own decision. Vote with your wallet, and hopefully you'll dig it. Because I love everything. So.
that house was one thing,
Oh,
and
so good. Ben Affleck, as you mentioned before, who's wonderful. He and Matt Damon wrote it, so they wrote the script, and they took so long to get that movie made. So they were trying so hard to get it made for the longest time, because the studios didn't know who Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were. They weren't stars at this point. They'd
yeah,
written this script,
they
and
were,
yeah,
and Minnie Driver.
yep.
Don't think anyone would have known her.
She'd done bits and pieces. She was probably better. She was probably more well known than the boys at this point. Although I think right before Goodwill Hunting happened, I think they had something come out. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was Armageddon. Maybe Armageddon was after. I don't know, but there was a big movie that kind of broke them right before Goodwill Hunting came out, which definitely helped. And then, of course, you got Robin Williams, who brought the star power needed to drive that vehicle, and he's wonderful. Were you there?
Yeah, she was in Birdcage, wasn't she?
She may have been. I've actually never seen Birdcage. It's a flick that I've been wanting to check out for ages. But
Well, Birdcage is another one of Robin Williams.
yes, and Nathan Lane.
Yeah, and so it was a strong movie by itself, um, with the characters, and I mean that character of
Minnie Driver had done Goldeneye. She'd done a James Bond film right before this. So
we often overlook movies because we don't like the name of the title, or it looks like it's too heavy to watch, so I'll let that one go for a while, and 10 years later you go, oh, maybe I should watch that.
Mm.
It's another one. I think the average person who saw it loved it.
Yeah, it's one of the highest rated movies I think on IMDb, if I remember correctly. It's pretty yeah, it's pretty well regarded. And I remember the first time I watched it was about 10 years ago. I was late to the party, and
Yeah,
afterwards I was like, how did it take me so long to get to this movie? Like, this movie is obviously brilliant.
yeah, yeah, and the different roles that they had. I mean, it's based in a school. There's a cleaner, um, and this one character that just keeps on sort of regurgitating, who's a genius.
Mm.
There's another probably example of a person who just can't get the stuff on the paper, but he's absolute genius.
Mm.
And it's you sit there and you think, how many times would I watch that once I'd seen it the first time? Because it's just one of those that actually draws you in, and you're going, yeah, love it. It's a story that you know there's a person out there everywhere,
Mm.
that situation, who's got some skills and ability and knowledge, but just can't do it.
Mm.
And they need someone to be the conduit to help them.
No,
And you say,
definitely.
hey,
So no, I was just agreeing with you. I was agreeing with you absolutely. And one thing that's great about Good Will Hunting, I think a lot of people haven't seen it, and at the time myself would be included in that list, is you don't realize how funny it is. Like, yes, it's
yeah,
a serious drama, but it is funny. Like, the boys wrote a funny script,
yeah,
and then you've got you've got Robin Williams improving half of his lines. Like, there's that whole monologue about how his wife used to fart in bed. That
yeah.
was all made up on the spot. It wasn't in the script. He just made it up and like was trying to get Matt Damon to laugh. So, um, it's a great flick. Yeah.
So I thought it was worthy of a mention, because you know what, I go a bit soft. I've come back fighting, James.
No, it's a strong one. What is next on your 90s list? I'm eager to hear the
Well,
next one.
something that we will have watched together and you will have watched by yourself, and that's Home Alone.
I love Home Alone. It's this movie. I don't know if it's come up much on this podcast, but on my last show, it used to come up every Christmas. We used to always do a Christmas episode. But it's so much fun. It's so much fun.
Well, I did a bit of research on this, and because I wanted to come out fighting, fighting,
Yes.
and the thing about this movie, John Candy was in it.
Yeah. That's the poker king of I can't remember where he's from now. I want to say Arkansas, but I don't know if that's quite right. But they're in the bus, they're in the van, and they're all playing poker.
Exactly.
Or polka, I should say, not yeah, not
Polka.
yeah, polka, not the card game, the music, the
No.
made popular by Weird Al Yankovic music style polka.
But he John Candy ad-libbed the whole
Yeah,
scene.
yeah,
Also, uh, um, Dingo Culkin did the same. He ad-libbed his script.
oh, interesting.
And yes, I had to come back, James, to something surprising about that is I wonder if he actually came back as an ad-lib, or that's the way he could act it.
Be
Rather,
interesting. I'm sure there were definitely scripted lines, but I think they probably did quite a bit of ad libbing because, yeah, he was the it kid. Like, for the '90s, like there was no one more popular in children's movies than Macaulay Culkin. Like, he reigned supreme.
yeah, yeah. And I'm not,
So for those living under a rock who haven't seen Home Alone, because there's possibly a few, I guarantee some of the younger audience members haven't seen Home Alone. The premise is pretty simple. It's Christmas time. The family's going to go on a vacation to to Paris, I believe it is. Paris is in the first one. New York's Florida is the second one. And in the rush of everything, they accidentally leave their 8-year-old boy home alone for Christmas, and they're trying to get a flight back from Paris to Chicago, not Chicago, Illinois. Um, and he has to kind of live home. I think it's only about a week. I don't think it's terribly long, but he has to kind of fend for himself. And then a bunch of burglars, try to break into his house and steal all their belongings, and he has to defend the house, which leads to humorous antics.
This is a movie that should be seen if you need a laugh.
Oh, it's peak slapstick. I don't think there's a movie that does. I haven't seen a lot of Three Stooges or Buster Keaton or anything like that, so I haven't seen the classics. But in terms of modern slapstick, I don't think you get better than the Home Alone films. Like, the physical comedy is brilliant.
Absolutely, and
Um,
the sad thing is that a young boy with huge talent, like many actors of that period, struggled. And
he's back though. He's been clean for quite a while now, and he's back and he's doing his own
yeah,
thing, and he's
yeah,
come back, which is really good.
yeah, and it's people giving people a chance again. I think sometimes people forget that everyone makes mistakes,
Mm.
but that is without a doubt a classic because it's coming up to Christmas.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. And Zoe's probably old enough to watch it now. She wouldn't really have been able to appreciate it the last couple of years, but I think now she's probably old enough to check out one of the Home
good
Alone films. Um,
look.
it is, I will say this, maybe the most violent children's movie ever made. I don't know if you saw during the pandemic, but there was this thing where a doctor was watching them and was talking about how serious it would have been if you got hit by any one of Kevin's traps, and he was like, ultimately like, yeah, both these people would definitely be dead. Like, there's no way you'd survive this. It's pretty insane.
It's really sad when people actually take everything serious.
Oh no, it was done. It was done. It was done for a laugh. It wasn't done like in a
Oh,
serious way. Like, he broke it down in a very humorous way. Like, it wasn't to like take the movie seriously. It was just a fun breakdown. Um, do you have a favorite Home Alone trap?
oh, Howie.
I think that's in the second one. That's when he's throwing the bricks down from the
Oh,
roof. Um, is which one? Which
with
movie
the
has?
first one or the second one?
Sorry,
The Russian.
that's the
The
third one.
with the second one.
No, the Russian terrorists are the third movie. So that's with Macaulay Culkin's no longer in that one.
Oh, that's right.
Um, that's with Mr. Jernigan. Um,
Oh no.
movie one and two. I
So,
I really like um, the paint cans. I think the paint cans is a classic one. I
yeah,
like
yeah,
the iron on the door handle, which burns his hand.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's the first one.
yeah.
When Marv holds onto the sink and it electrocutes him, he turns into a skeleton. That's a really good one.
There was something interesting because the guy who was producing the movie,
Mm.
he was one thing in the movie, and that was the character that was the old man, and the granddaughter who he hadn't seen.
That is so.
And as I
Yeah, there's in both the movies. There's a red herring where you have a creepy-looking character who you think is a villain, but is actually a really nice person.
yeah,
The first one is Old Man Marley, the man who hasn't seen his granddaughter.
yeah,
And then the second one is the bird lady. I've been very
yeah,
vocal about the bird lady on this movie. I don't like the bird lady, but I do like the old man. I think that's a really great storyline.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting how they, you know, if there's something that they're trying to say and they actually get it in and it works, it's pretty good.
My favorite story from the making of Home Alone is that obviously Joe Pesci plays
Oh,
Harry. He plays Harry. He plays one of the wet bandits, and he'd just come off making Goodfellas with Martin Scorsese, and he couldn't stop swearing on set, and like he kept getting in trouble because he was saying all these horrible words in front of children. That's and he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I can't help it. I'm sorry. I just made a Scorsese film. Like, the guy gives me 300 f words per movie. Like, I just think it's so funny.
oh,
Um, and it's like, it's again like it's a kids film, and like, who is creepier and more unsettling as a villain than Joe Pesci? Like,
yeah,
I I like as well. There was a fan theory, and obviously it's not real. Like, but just people were saying, wouldn't it be funny if Home Alone was the origins behind the Saw movies? Because
Oh,
Kevin makes traps, and in Saw the guy makes traps. And I always thought that was a pretty funny idea.
yeah. The have you seen
Also, oh, sorry, go on.
have you seen Babylon?
Yes. I thought Babylon was one of the most underrated films of last year. People were
Yeah.
criticizing that film and tearing it apart, but it's wonderful. It's a really
Oh,
good movie.
yeah. You just got you just you've got to watch it 2 or 3 times because there's just so much in it.
It's long. I understand why people had problems with it because it is over 3 hours long, and that is quite long for a movie. But
Took
it's
ages.
wonderful. Like it's this guy can't stop making movies about Hollywood. He made Whiplash, he made La La Land, he made Babylon. They're all wonderful. It's a great flick.
Look, there are geniuses in this world, and he's one. And you have a look at the one, like the the amount of people who are just classically brilliant.
You have to watch if you like Babylon. You have to watch Whiplash. Like I'm sending you that as well. I'm sending you a lot of movies to watch today. I've sent you 3 already. You have
There
to
we
watch
go.
Whiplash. It's so good. It's I always describe it as the best horror movie that's not a horror movie because even though it's a story about a kid who wants to play drums professionally, but his teacher is the most horrible human being you've seen in any movie. He's like the best movie villain of all time to the point where it does feel like a horror film. Um, so you got to watch Whiplash, and the guy who made Whiplash made Babylon. Babylon was wonderful. I
Oh,
can't say enough good things about it. Like I'll say this, like they made The Great Gatsby about 10 years ago, and I love that book, but I thought that movie was a bit underwhelming.
yep,
Babylon is the Great Gatsby film we should have got. Like it's
yep,
very much like The Great Gatsby, but then it just goes into a lot more of the Hollywood scene.
yeah.
Those party scenes are what The Great Gatsby should have been.
It's
Um,
you know, eh, it's a pleasure to see. I mean, I don't know whether you've ever seen uh, Clockwork Orange.
yes, yeah. I've seen it a couple of times. The first time I watched it, I loved it. I watched it about 5 years ago, and I felt very differently. As a teenager, like in your late teens, early 20s, it's quite an edgy movie. As a guy in his 30s, I was like, "Oh, this is a really upsetting movie." It made me feel very differently.
Yeah, well, you want to see that when it first came out, which is about 20 years before you did, and the one of the things, and that gets overlooked in these things. You've got to put it in context of the era of the day.
Mm.
So the
Oh no,
character.
I can. I still. I think it's a well-made film. I think it's a very good movie, but
Yeah,
just a movie that I thought was cool as a teenager, I'm like, well, actually, no one in this movie is cool. They're actually all pretty horrible. They're not
yeah,
quite cool.
and that's probably a fair assessment.
It's how I feel about Animal House now. Like, Animal House is a very funny movie. As a teenager, I thought they were all cool. As an adult, I'm like, oh, these guys are horrible people. Like, the only
Oh,
one who
God.
maybe gets away with it is Bluto, and like he's not great because he's perving on women through the window, but at least he's not assaulting people. Like, so he's just turning himself into a zit. Um,
Yeah,
it's yeah. What am I? A zit. Um,
perfect. That would be a bit like the not John Belushi, the Alty Towers when they do the meaning of life.
oh,
Yeah,
Monty Python: The Meaning of Life.
yeah,
I haven't seen
yes,
that in ages. Probably my
yeah.
least favorite of the Python films. I love, and now for something completely different. That's my favorite.
I think it's yeah. As you look at movies, and have a look at them and see what they're saying or doing, and you sit there going, wow, it's clever. When they were clever well before being clever, and
Mm.
they were out there, like they they really did push the barra. I'm going to say the
Well, I
wheelbarrow.
remember we watched that documentary, and like they were so ahead of their time. People were watching, the 1948 show or whatever it was before they became the Pythons. They had two separate shows, and people were like, "What is this? Like, we don't understand. Like, what
Yeah,
is this?" And it was so ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And that's what, to bring it back full circle, that's how I feel about Babylon. I think Babylon is a film that just people didn't quite appreciate for what it is, but I feel like in about 5 years' time, we were like, wow, what a masterpiece. Like, we just didn't understand it at the time. We just didn't really realize what the director was trying to do. Like, yeah. And you get a few movies like that. Every couple of years, you get a movie that, the audience doesn't quite understand, but doesn't quite appreciate. And then, it, gets a following, later on. Like Blues Brothers, is a flick that, has got a real cult following. Wicker Man, that's a movie you and I've talked about in the past as well. Like movies that people didn't
Oh,
really get at the time. But
that's brilliant. The first, not the second one, but the first one.
no, the one with Christopher Lee and Edward Woodward.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The
I love movies about cults, and Wicker Man is pretty much the gold standard.
when I was talking to my specialist, because I was, I was talking about the Keeler Cemetery.
Mm.
I said, there's some well-known people up there. She said, who? I said, Carl Williams.
Yeah.
And not, I don't think the Moran brothers are there, but the little guy from Sunshine, Benji Venom, and Keeler's.
You mentioned Benji, and your dog Benji has responded.
Yeah, he'd go, no, not
It's
you,
like, I'm
mate.
not buried.
Right.
He's like, I bury things. I don't get buried.
Exactly. The old local area is a centerpiece of things, but now I can't remember what I was going to say.
It's okay. It's all good. We can jump onto your next movie if you like. We're 3 down. We've got 2 to go.
Oh, what are they?
Do you have your list in front of you?
Yes, I have.
We've talked about Home Alone. We've talked about Pretty Woman. We talked about Good Will Hunting. Which one do you want to talk about next?
Well, we talked about Good Will Hunting. We also didn't we talk about? Did we talk about?
Two left. It's dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice. I just think.
Do you want to talk about Edward first?
Did we talk Edward Scissorhands? Oh, we haven't got there.
We haven't got to Edward Scissorhands. Edward Scissorhands next on the list.
I had some notes down here. Hang on.
Yeah, get your notes. All good.
We've done Pretty Woman, haven't we?
Yep, we do Edward Scissorhands, and there's one left, which I will help you with if you need help.
Oh, Silence for the Lambs.
Spoilers. Yep. Okay. Yes, the Silence of the Lambs is your last one. Let's talk about Edward Scissorhands first, though.
I think that we'll do that later. Now, so we've done that. We've done that. Pretty Woman. Yep.
Edward Scissorhands. Let's talk about it.
Edward Scissorhands, 1990. And there was something I just saw there. One of the directors of one of the movies. Oh yeah, one of the directors of Home Alone. His name was Chris Columbus.
Sure was. He also directed Harry Potter.
Is that right?
He did the first 2 Harry Potter films.
And he still hasn't found a way to get home.
Very good.
I wrote that down and I forgot all about it, and it's a bit late, but anyway, it's there now. Edward Scissorhands, and this is it's in the. I mean, because this is also in the same vein as Beetlejuice.
Very much so.
I think people struggled with it in many ways. Because how many people walk around with scissors connected to their hands?
I don't know why, but I knew you were going to say that. I'm like, no, people can't relate to a man with scissors for hands. How many people have scissors for hands? It's very gothic. It's very much. It may be the most Tim Burton of Tim Burton films. Like the kid's dressed in leather. He's got crazy. Like if you look at a picture of Tim Burton from 1990 and look at a picture of Edward Scissorhands, they look pretty similar.
Change, yeah.
Lots of black leather, lots of like crazy black hair, in every direction. They just didn't have the scissors for hands, obviously. But what a fun Beautiful little movie that is.
And who's the lead character?
Johnny Depp plays Ed, and you've got Winona Ryder as the young daughter,
Oh,
but she's very different. She's very different to her Beetlejuice counterpart. She's not the
yeah,
gothic sad sack. She's very much the beacon of hope. She's very much like a like you would see her as like the prom queen. She's very much like the popular blonde girl.
yeah, and she was popular with me. The really know why, but the thing that's really interesting and important is that if people don't like Johnny Depp, they'll never like those shows because characteristically, they're each an individual movie of a character um, that is very deep. It's almost eccentric. Does that make sense?
Sure does. Yeah, he. One of the biggest criticisms I had for Johnny Depp in the last decade was he became very obsessed. And look, like it's a criticism, but what does my opinion matter? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just for my taste, I would have liked him to do something with no makeup because there was just a period where he could do nothing but be a character in lots of hair and makeup and like weird and kooky and stuff like that. Like, obviously, Pirates of the Caribbean is brilliant. I rewatched Black Pearl, like the first one this year, and it is insanely well. It holds up so well. But he just went through a phase where like every single thing he did, he was under like a bunch of prosthetics. I was like, can he just like do like a, can he just be like a detective or a gangster or something? Like I just, I don't need him to be in the makeup in every single movie. Like he just
Yeah,
went through a phase where he was doing it so much. I think the last thing I can think of where he was kind of just playing a normal guy was maybe John Dillinger in Public Enemies. That might be the last time he kind of played something a bit more normal.
yeah.
Not normal, but grounded. But there's no um, denying the dedication to his craft.
Oh,
Like the guy, like personal matters aside, and whatever's going on in his personal life, that's one thing. But like as a performer, like the guy is 100% in like into it. Everything he does, there's dedication and like transformative.
he, I think, like when he was going through those court cases, they used to say, was he acting or was he whatever? Um, and we're all acting, no matter what we do. We're putting a performance on in front of people. So, bang. The thing that was always amazing was whenever he spoke in his role, you it was knowledge. Like
Mm,
what he if he went in and saw the kids at the hospital,
mm,
he got into character and he knew what he was doing when he went in there because he'd done his homework.
yeah.
And he is the ultimate professional in the way that he does his research. And you know, I dare say a lot of the stuff he would have done would have been ad lib. Um, it's just the way he is. He's just. Um, I always like the work he does
Mm.
because he's out there.
I'm very much looking forward to talking about movies from the 2000s. It's a topic we'll be doing sometime in the next 6 months, because at least one person is going to bring up Pirates of the Caribbean. And whilst there are five of those movies, and I've only seen them all once except for the first one because the first one is so wonderful. I'm very much looking forward to talking about that first movie because that performance is insane. Like it's
Yeah,
so fresh and different. And that movie, like people forget, that movie was nominated for Best Picture, and I
yeah,
think he was nominated for Best Actor. Like it was so, like, even though like it was a theme that should have been done to death. Like Pirates was nothing new. Like they'd been pirate movies for decades,
yeah,
but the approach they took to that movie was fun and it was swashbuckling and it was action packed and there was romance, but like none of the characters felt derivative. They all felt like their own thing. Like, oh, what a great, I can't wait to talk about that. Edward Scissorhands might be his most understated performance. Like he's got a lot of hair and makeup going on, but the performance is very quiet. He's
yeah.
not loud and crazy and kooky. He's very like, because he's an isolated loner. Like his father dies in that castle on the hill, and then like the Avon lady finds him and forces him to join the real world.
The
Um,
Avon.
that's who she is. She's an Avon lady. She's the Avon lady. And try and kind of like forces him to join society against his wishes, and then like when things don't go wrong, she thinks he's a monster, but like he was perfectly happy living in a castle on the hill. Because that movie is Frankenstein. Like that's what it is. It's basically Frankenstein. Yeah. But the color, like just the color palette of that town, how everything is like a different shade of pastel. It's and like the hairdressing stuff and the hedge clipping, like it's so good.
What do they call that stuff when you cut it?
Sorry?
Benji, enough. When you're cutting the plant to make a shape.
Topiary?
That's it. Thank you very much.
That is a word that has never been uttered on this podcast, and I'll be honest, I can't remember the last time I heard anyone use that word. But I'm glad we got topiary in there. It's a lovely word.
Oh. Wow.
That means there's one left.
What's the last one?
Silence of the Lambs?
Oh, no, leave it.
What do you mean leave it?
No, leave it.
You don't want to talk about it?
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I want to make sure I cover everything.
Okay. So your top 5 movies from the 90s is just a top 4. That's what we're doing?
Yeah. No, well, what it does, it means that the one that was going to come 5 now comes 4.
So we're not going to talk about Silence of the Lambs today. We don't have to.
Gee, you're putting pressure.
No. I'm asking you. Like, if you don't want to talk about Silence of the Lambs, we'll take it off the list.
Take it off the list.
Take it off the list.
I'm sorry.
But you don't have to apologize. Is there another movie from the 90s you want to talk about, or are you happy leaving it at 4?
Well, let me have a think.
There's no pressure. Like I had a friend on her very first episode. I asked for her top 5 favorite films, and she gave me 10 movies. Her number 5 was 6 different films. She couldn't separate 6 movies from the 5th place. So don't stress. And I've referenced that instance a lot on this show, so I'm sure she appreciates me making fun of her yet again.
Go back. Yeah.
Just going to fill in this dead air while Dad looks. He's looking. He brought a top 5 list. He's removed 1. He's given us 4, but he's having a quick Google to see if there's anything else he likes.
I'm an old man. Give me a break.
72 next week. So, and this episode will come out before your 72nd birthday.
Really? Now, is it cold over your way?
Yeah, that's what the listeners want to hear, us talking about the weather. It is cold over here. It's very sunny, but it's cold.
I haven't worked out how the heater works properly.
For those listening and don't know what he's talking about, Dad's just moved into a new house. That's one of the reasons why he hasn't been on the show, and he's obviously mentioned he's been retired. So in the last year, which is why it's been a struggle to get him on the show as well, because he's had a lot of things going on. But he's back, and this is what you've been waiting for. This is what people have been looking forward to: is Dad at the last minute changing his list and then trying to find out what he's going to add to it, while we all wait in anticipation.
While you sit there thinking about what we've been discussing, you've got any questions or anything, always send a message to James and say, why don't you talk about this? As long as you don't ask for Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, you talked about Mrs. Doubtfire in your very first appearance. That was one of your top 5 of all time, I remember.
Yeah, it was. Okay.
You've got one?
Yes.
Everyone listening is in anticipation. They can't wait to hear what the last movie is that you've just Googled.
Well, I'm going to say one of the main leads is Jodie Foster.
But not Silence of the Lambs.
It is Silence of the Lambs.
You've changed. Oh, that is genius. Okay. All of that. Well, the listeners are like, we waited through all of that to hear him just say Silence of the Lambs again. Oh, that's so funny. Silence of the Lambs is great.
This is another movie with actors in it that are brilliant, and Jodie Foster What was this TV series she was in?
Oh, what a question. I don't know. Let me look it up while we're talking.
Okay, why don't you look it up while we're talking?
Will do. Silence
Okay.
of the Lambs is a movie that I watched when I was very young. I think I was still in high school when I watched it for the first time. And I knew about it because you talked about it around the house. But for a little bit of background, we've talked about it a little bit on the show, but we didn't watch horror films in our house. We really didn't watch horror films at all. So for you to kind of recommend it to me, I think was quite a surprise. I wasn't expecting it. Um, but you'd seen Silence of the Lambs, you'd seen Exorcist, and I think Alien was the other one you recommended. In fact, you were the person who introduced me to Alien.
I can only
But
recommend movies that I wasn't scared of.
yeah, well, I think you were pretty scared of Exorcist, if I remember correctly.
I'd seen it though.
That's true. And as I said, it's coming. It's coming back to theaters this year. They're putting it back in the cinema.
I think I liked it in the comedy series one.
Oh, Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen,
Yeah, Repossessed.
which also had oh my goodness, and who played Reagan? Nancy. Oh my goodness, how am I forgetting who played Reagan? I have to look this up. Oh my goodness. The people listening are like, just talk about the movie. No, we're going down a rabbit hole. It was Linda Blair, so not Nancy at all. I don't know where Nancy came from. Linda
Yeah.
Blair. Yeah, she was in Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen. So Silence of the Lambs, for those who don't know, is one of the
Bit
stories.
psycho.
Yeah, it's written by Thomas Harris. It's based on the book by Thomas Harris, and is kind of one of the many stories of Hannibal Lecter, Hannibal the Cannibal. Previously, they'd only made one movie about Hannibal, and that was Manhunter, which is one of Nick Owen's favorite movies. He's talked about in the show. But Silence of the Lambs tells the story of Clarice Starling, the up and coming FBI rookie, and they're trying to find Buffalo Bill, the guy who's been abducting women and killing them. And
Yes.
sorry,
Skinning them to death.
he's skinning them because he's making a suit.
Yeah.
It's not yeah. I don't know whether like
For that movie series, Skins.
yeah, different thing.
Not the same one.
Not the same one. But you've got Ted Levine as Buffalo Bill, who's wonderful. Like, what a great creepy performance. Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling. You've got obviously Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter. He was nominated. Did he win Best Actor that year? I'm trying to think. He was definitely nominated, and he's only in the movie for about 10 minutes. That was like the big thing everyone was talking about. He's only got about 10 minutes screen time. Who else is in Silence of the Lambs that I'm missing? I'm missing some good people. Scott Glenn.
Oh, hang on, I'll give you.
Those are the main ones. Those are the main people. But yeah, it's basically a manhunt. You know, they're trying to find this guy who keeps killing women before he kills again. And in order to get help, Clarice has to go to the asylum where Hannibal Lecter is being held. You know, it's not a prison, is it? It's a mental asylum because he's psychotic. And she goes and asks him questions, interrogates him, because he's of a genius intellect and is a psychopath. They're hoping that like he can help provide some insight into the character, understand the character of Buffalo Bill and try and find out what he's doing and why. It is.
Right, James. You got Anthony Hopkins, Jodie Foster, Ted Levine, Brooke Smith.
Yeah, I got the first three. I'm pretty happy with that.
Scott Glenn and Ted Talley.
Yeah, Scott Glenn is so good as well. There you go. He did win the best acting. Yeah, he's only got 11 minutes. Yeah. Actually, Jodie Foster won as well. In fact, they won almost every Academy Award they were nominated for.
At that time, yeah.
Yeah, Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, Best Writing. There are only two it didn't win, and that was sound and editing. But I watched it again this year for the first time in a while, and it is a masterful film. It's paced brilliantly. Like, it's older, and even though it's a 90s film, it feels older than 90s film, but it's not slow. Like, it's just, every scene is wonderful.
And if you're not sure about it, you can always just watch one of those trailers, because the trailers are really good.
It's
I'll get a caravan soon.
Well done. I would say for people who are a bit uneasy about horror, it's a really good entry level into the genre, because it's not scary. It's unsettling, but it's more of a crime thriller. But the other movies are definitely horror films, especially Hannibal. Like, although Red Dragon is quite horrifying as well. But it's a really great. It's just it's a perfect movie. I just don't have any other way to phrase it. It's a perfect movie for me. What is it about Silence of the Lambs that you like so much? Or have I taken all the good
Probably
answers?
summed up by saying it's a perfect movie. Not all horror movies are perfect movies, you know,
Absolutely.
and this is set in a different sort of environment,
Mm,
and I think that, you know, it's a horror movie, but it's almost like, what am I going to say? Um, you've got a serial killer. You get serial killers in lots of horror movies. That's nothing unusual. I just think the way it's been plotted,
mm,
the actors, once again, it really depends on the quality of the actors and the roles they do that make the movie
mm.
work or make it a horror.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that's interesting, I was just thinking about, I was just looking over your list while you were talking. It's actually a really interesting, like, this is going to sound out there what I'm going to say, but it's a really interesting companion piece to Pretty Woman. Like, Pretty Woman and Silence of the Lambs thematically actually have a lot of things in common. Like, they both have strong female leads who are treated differently for the professions they've chosen by their peers and by the men around them. Like, they're actually very, like, thematically, there's a lot of similarities there.
Go and answer the door.
Like, if you think about if you think about how Clarice is treated, like, yeah, she's treated poorly because she's a rookie, but also the FBI is very much a men's business at that point,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
don't really like this young hotshot woman coming in and kind of making decisions and asking questions. So yeah, like, I just realized it then. I didn't plan it, but there's actually, like, quite a few similarities between that and Pretty Woman. Um, yeah,
That's a
it's
good link. It- the the I think Jodie Foster. Um, you know, if you think about Taxi, you know,
Taxi Driver.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah, those roles are really strong roles, um, and they. It's almost like they've actually just not forced you into a corner, but when you're so good at something, um, and that's such a big role. But I think you're right. Is that I understand what you say about a similarity between Pretty Woman, you know, and someone who's getting chased by a crazy man. Uh, in some ways, they're both crazy, as in the guy in Pretty Woman.
mm.
You know, in his own way. It's a bit like it's a bit like the guy in 50 Shades of Purple.
I haven't seen those movies, but now that I know you have, I guess I'm going to put them on my list and check them out. Um, it's got your favorite actress. I know you like Dakota Johnson, so there you go.
I only like her because I don't know why.
Because she's
Uh,
funny. Because she's funny. That's what you were saying. She's very
he
funny
had
in the interviews.
something. There is something very endearing about that young lady. When she smiles, she's warm. You know, she doesn't have to do anything. She just smiles, and you're thinking, you know, she's amazing. She's just, and there's a class about her. There's something that's really, you know, not a lot of actresses or actors or whatever are like that, and yet, you know, and I heard her doing an interview um, it might have been on the Graham Norton show or something like that,
Mm.
and she was getting an award, and she came up and her outfit malfunctioned, and she just turns around to the audience and said, "Well, it's not like you haven't seen my boobs before, you know." And it's like it's a real. girlish kind of comment.
Yeah, I remember there was something similar. Emilia Clarke, who plays Daenerys in Game of Thrones,
Yep.
she was doing a show on Broadway, and
Oh,
that show required her to appear nude. There was some nudity in it, and she was saying that she was in the show, like she was doing the stage show, and like every now and then like a flash would go off, and she's like, "There's people taking photos of me naked on the stage." Like she's like, there's a whole TV show where I'm naked every episode. Like you don't need to like get your camera out. Like it's freely available. You can check it out there. I thought that was very amusing.
and that's another character, just loads of humour.
Yeah, she's
And,
great. Yeah, she's really underrated actually. Emilia Clarke. She gets I think she gets a rough time from critics and stuff. People say
I
she's not.
think you're right. I mean, there's a lot of, people out there, and but Dakota, she's she's one of those people who she can do a role, and it's believable, but it's still dignified.
I actually haven't seen many of her performances. I haven't seen those 50 Shades films. I'll do a quick look. We are getting towards the end of the show, so we can do a little bit of silliness. Let's have a look and see if I've seen any Dakota Johnson films. I've definitely seen her in interviews. I must have seen something she was in. Let's have a look. Oh, Social
Her
Network.
interviews are great. She is so funny.
Yeah, Social Network she was in. I just watched that again the other night. But I don't remember her being in that. That's interesting. Although she would have been quite young. Bad Times at El Royale. Oh, Suspiria. Oh, I love Suspiria, and she's wonderful in that.
She's
Black
talking
Mass, I've
about,
seen.
has your mother seen the movie? And she goes, no. And then she says, what about your grandmother? She said, yes.
Yeah. 5 Year Engagement, 21 Jump Street. Oh, yeah, so she's done some things that I've seen. Yeah, no, everything I've seen her in, I actually do love her in. So there you go. I watched Suspiria only about a month ago, and she's
Yeah,
wonderful in that as well.
yeah.
Great actress. But maybe Tina and I are watching a bunch of movies at the moment. Maybe I'll see if I can convince her to watch those 50 Shades when I'm like, hey, for a laugh, should we watch 50 Shades? See what she says. I think I know the answer already, but we'll see. That is a great list. There is not a bad flick on there. And there are a couple of films we talked about in the past, but there's a few new ones on there. We've never done Home Alone on this show, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think we've done Silence of the Lambs on the show either. So that is a good list, Dad. Very, very exciting. So all that's left to do on the show is do our rapid fire question round, and then we'll be out of here. It's gonna put I'm gonna put the screws to you because you might not have the answers ready to go. Alrighty, first question of the rapid fire round, Dad. Which '90s movie has the best poster? Can you remember any movie posters from the '90s? That's the real question.
From that selection.
It doesn't have to be from your selection, but if you want to choose from your selection, there's definitely a movie on there that has a wonderful poster. So,
I've got a feeling the Silence of the Lambs was a good poster.
it's a great poster. I'd forgotten about it. It's a really good poster. So that's a good answer. Yeah, I think most people said Jurassic Park, which is a good poster, but I think Silence of the Lambs might have a beat. Alrighty. And which actress from the '90s, or actor or actress from the '90s, that haven't been in anything for a while, who deserves a comeback? Who haven't we seen for a long time? You want to see come back? Big in the '90s.
Winona Ryder.
Yeah, she's kind of been here and there. She had some stuff in the 2000s. She's been on Stranger Things. We haven't really seen her do anything in the movies for a while. I'll take that. That's a good pick. Alrighty. So the '90s was, I guess, the beginning of CGI. It was the first time we kind of saw, not in any of your movies. All your movies are very practical, but we kind of saw the new technology come out. Which movie from the '90s do you think could best be improved by today's technology? Doesn't have to be graphics. It could be the camera work. It could be the sound.
Fifth Element.
Yeah, what a great pick. That's a movie that came up a lot in our '90s talks as well. And last question, the rapid fire. You are rapid firing. You're rapid answering. Which movie from the '90s do you think needs a sequel in the form of a TV show? It's very popular now to take a '90s movie and give it a sequel in episodes. What movie would you like to see a sequel, but it's done as a TV show?
Beetlejuice.
I think Beetlejuice is 80s, but I'll take it anyway. They are doing a new
Oh,
Beetlejuice. They are doing a new Beetlejuice movie.
yeah.
They're working on it right now. Winona Ryder's back, and Jenna Ortega is
How
playing her
good was
daughter.
that?
Very good casting. That is it. We have done our 90s list. We've done our 90s rapid fire questions. We talked about a lot of stuff that wasn't related to movies at all, but that is to be expected on a dad episode. Before we wrap things up, do you have any final thoughts for today's show?
Loved it.
Oh, there you go.
When I say loved it, I mean that's a bit. It was
I wasn't
good.
fishing for compliments, but I'll gobble up every one of those little fishies there.
No,
That sounds
it's
great.
good. It was good to unwind after such a long time.
Absolutely.
Well,
Excellent. Well, I'll wrap things up and we'll head out of here. So I want to thank my dad for finally coming back. It's not his fault he wasn't here sooner. As you heard, he's had a pretty crazy 12 months and there's been a lot going on, but he's back. So definitely good to have him back on the show. And hopefully you dug the unique brand that he brings to the show as well. Definitely always fun to hear. You do have a unique brand. Everyone who comes on the show has a unique brand. There's not two guests that are alike. So hopefully the audience enjoyed your triumphant return. If you want to support the show, you can jump online, head to Instagram. I was a teenage film snob, underscores between every single word. I'm trying to post there more. I keep saying I'm going to, and then things happen. I've been very tired from work, but there are videos up pretty regularly. I just did a Ninja Turtles review last night, so you can watch that. I post up photos and stories and all sorts of fun things. If you want to really support the show, you can buy a t-shirt. Head to tpublic.com and search for I Was a Teenage Film Snob, or check out the links on the Instagram page. They're really comfy. They cost about $20. If you're a first-time buyer, you get 20% off. And I make no money off them. I think that I clear about $3-4 on them. So it's not there for me to make money. It's there to promote the show. So if you want to get a t-shirt, go check out one of those. And that is about it. Next week, we should have our very last Apocalypse series done. I have a 90s guest coming up. I'm currently in talks with people in the US and the UK, trying to get some quasi celebrities on the show, and I'm getting some pretty positive response there. And that will do it. So thank you once again to my father for coming on. It was a blast having him. Thank you all for listening. And as we say every single week on this show, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I promise you, I'm trying to be better. We'll see you next week.
okay. I just did that because
The minute I hit the record button, that's what you do. I think you've done that to me every single time. I should have expected it. Oh my goodness. Pardon me. Late night. Because, I watched a movie after the movie. I was like, I know I've been to the movies, but I'm still going to watch another movie tonight. So.
yeah. I've been watching. I was watching a British series called Dalgate Police.
Oh, yep.
And I mean, it's pretty typical of the pommy type things, but I actually enjoy them. And I don't watch too many times. Do I watch, Looney Tunes? I can be my. I've got a
packet of tissues. I thought you had a packet of biscuits at first. I was like, we're about to start talking on the show. What are you doing? But I realized it was tissues.
Yeah. So the movies that I looked at.
Hang on, I got to start the show. Hang on, you're getting excited. It's all good.
I'm excited.
No, that's all good. I feel like I should keep that in because it's very funny.
I'm little Give. I'm excited. Oh yes, please. I'll take my medication and I'll be fine. Now, you tell me when we're ready, bro.
Yep, I'm just waiting for you to stop and I'll start the show. I'm just waiting for a pause. Oh, that's so funny.